I'm Lily. Welcome to the Ladybug Laboratory, and I'm here for this week's Roll to Craft. Last week I rolled a 99, which was to organize my fabric scraps, to organize and inventory my fabric, which desperately needed doing, and I gotta say I am like super motivated to use all of my scraps now. So this fabulous shelf behind me, well, I guess it's two shelves here, but they are conjoined into one unishelf, used to have just like piles of fabric scraps on them. So we're going to talk about how this happened. So on this shelf used to be just like a whole bunch of sewing kits and pre-cuts and stuff here. And then this was all random bigger fabric scraps like yardage and stuff all the way to the end, which, let's see, where are you seeing? You're seeing about halfway. And then I also had two of these filled with fabric scraps. Those are the Calyx IKEA boxes on the bottom of my shelf behind me. And I have a cardboard box down there that's about double this, filled with scraps. So here's what I've done. The first thing I did is take everything off of those shelves and put together these drawers, which have been sitting in a box since I ordered them in March of 2024. So I put those together. I already had some of these. I went and got more. So I put together these drawers, and I had gotten those for the purpose of organizing my fabric scraps, and I never got up the gumption to do it, and I'm so glad I've done it. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited with how this is looking. So that's what I did. So I put those together, and then I started sorting, and I started just like, I would pull out a pile of scraps. Step one was to iron it. And if there was enough fabric to get a fat 1/8 or larger, then I didn't cut it. For those of you that don't know about fabric, fabric comes in yardages typically, and typically fabric bolts are 42 inches wide of fabric. I will be putting diagrams here. 42 inches wide of fabric. And so if you get a yard, it's like 36 inches by 40 to 42 inches, right? Typically 42. So if you get half a yard, that would be like 18 by 42, right? So a quarter yard would be 9 by 42, but it's kind of like skinny. So there's something called a fat quarter, which is where instead of dividing the yard into four long skinny strips, you divide it into like 4 squares essentially. So a fat quarter is 18 by 21 inches. And I'm putting this diagram over here where I am wildly gesticulating. A fat 1/8 is also a thing, not nearly as common as a fat quarter. Fat quarters are everywhere. They're super common. And a fat 1/8 is typically, let's see, it's 9 by 21 inches. So diagrams, hopefully you're seeing diagrams right now. So if the fabric was big enough for a fat 1/8, or it was an 1/8 of fabric by width of fabric, so an 1/8 of fabric would be 4.5 inches. So if it was 4.5 inches all the way across the fabric, or it was enough to be a fat 1/8, I didn't cut it. And what I did is I folded it into these little like sections that can fit in these cubies from, they're like bright room organizers from Target. So I have this like little piece of cardboard that basically you can see just like fits straight into one of these. And I used this to figure out folding methods for my fat quarters, and then based all my other folding methods based on that. So, so I could stack them all in there, as you see. So if it was a fat 1/8 or an 1/8 or larger, I didn't do anything with it. Everything else, everything that was smaller, I cut into pre-cut sizes. So those of you that don't know, quilting cotton often comes in pre-cut sizes. So there are largely a couple of sizes that quilting cotton comes in. It can come in bundles of fat quarters. But beyond that, which I've already addressed fat quarters, the three main sizes that it comes in are, this is going to crinkle a little bit, layer cakes, which is 10-inch squares. And this would be a package of 40 coordinating 10-inch squares, usually from the same fabric print line. You don't see 40 different fabrics here because some of them are duplicates, but there will be 40 squares in here. Let's see, or there might be 42. 42. It depends on the manufacturer. The other size they come in is same idea. 5-inch squares. These are called charm packs. So this one there. Whee. And then the third main size they come in is jelly rolls, which is 2.5-inch strips by the width of fabric. So 42 inches by 2.5 inches. And again, it's going to be 42 pieces in each one from typically the same fabric line. Look at that. That's such a cool little rainbow. And they're often very good for making quilts that coordinate together. I have not gotten any pre-cuts in 4 or 5 years. I got them a lot when I first started quilting, and then I kind of realized I don't need to. I have so much fabric, so many scraps. But the thing about pre-cuts is that there's lots and lots and lots of patterns out there for pre-cut sizes because there's so many of them. So any fabric scraps that were not big enough to be a fat eighth or an eighth of a yard or larger, I cut into pre-cut sizes. So 10 inches strips or squares, 5-inch strips or squares, and 2.5-inch strips or squares. And then everything else I called crumbs or strings. And all of those went in here. So at this point, I'm going to give you like a tour of my scrap organization because I am very proud of this. So right here, I have this bin. Anything that didn't fit a pre-cut size, I just tossed into this bin. And I'm now going and sorting all of those into the places that they go, which is on the shelf. So on the shelf, all of these drawers are for anything that wasn't big enough to be a pre-cut size. So this drawer is multicolored fabrics. We have everything from like rainbows to like anything that just kind of is a lot of different colors. This one, it says peach. It's not. It's anything that's primarily a darker color. So primarily black or primarily brown with a pattern on top of it. This is white or gray, possibly with a pattern on it. Then we get into the rainbows. So red, orange, and peach, pink, purple, blue, teal, green, yellow, and then here we get like tan, or what's sometimes called low volume in quilting. Now we're going to go up top. Up here, for some reason, I just kind of felt like I had to separate my solids out. So this is like red, orange, and yellow solids, blue and green, black, white, and brown, and then pink and purple. Now here are here's a bin. Look at my rainbow of fat quarters. Isn't that so pretty? I love it. Then this is anything that is a fat eighth all the way up to a fat quarter. So some of these are a little bigger than a fat eighth, but they're smaller than a fat quarter. This is width of fabric, an eighth of a yard to a quarter of a yard. So an eighth of a yard or bigger, but up to a quarter of a yard. The reason the width of a fabric matters is because if I can get nice long strips out of it, I want to know. Here we have half yards or up to, these are half yard to full yard. These are all half yards. I happen to know that because you can tell they coordinate. They're all for the same project. Then over here, we have, these are my 10-inch squares and strips, my 5-inch squares and strips, and my 2.5-inch squares and strips. And you can tell that these are absolutely overflowing. So at some point, I'm going to have to go back through and reorganize and recategorize. I'm probably going to end up using foam board to divide the colored drawers so that I can potentially put the jelly roll stuff, or the 2.5-inch strips, into the colored drawers. I'm also going to potentially divide the colored drawers into the types of crumbs they are, but I haven't really decided about that. But for now, I'm super excited about it. So, how many of the scraps did I get through? Well, I got through everything that was up here, and I got through, I'm gonna say, almost one of these bins, because in one of these bins, I found a lot of garment fabric. I have not gone through anything that is not quilting cotton. I just kind of put that into another bin, and it's about 3/4 full. Everything else but both of these bins were like stuffed. It's about loosely 3/4 full. This bin is completely empty. You have seen the loosely tossed, sort of like IKEA tub that I'm using to sort. Once I've finished sorting that, I will say that I've gone through a full bin and a little bit more. I haven't done the garment fabric. The large cardboard box, have not touched. Haven't touched it at all. That is going to be a project for another day. Now, the drawers, the little drawers that I'm keeping the solid fabrics in, I have some more of those to assemble. And I have some ideas for how I can use those. I know I mentioned that I have to do some reorganizing here, because you can tell that the jelly roll bin, or 2.5-inch strip bin, is super overflowing. Which makes sense. I mean, that's the primary pre-cut size that I use, and it's also the easiest one to cut. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes. I will definitely keep you posted, and I will probably do a whole video later when I have this completely sorted out on how the system goes, how it works for me, if it's successful, and any ideas I have from there. But what's next? Excuse me. Well, I rolled a 6. And 6 is sewing gift. And so I present to you the most absurd fabric in the world, and I love it. I love it so much. I'm gonna make my daughter a dress out of this fabric for her birthday, which is coming up. And she's gonna absolutely flip. So that's gonna be my next project, and I'm excited. All right, I think that's it, and I will see you next time. Remember, joy is resistance, and I love you all very much, and I will talk to you later.